Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Going Solo, Life After Relationship Loss. I'm your host, Cece Shatz. You are on the new streaming network, home of Going Solo and Going Bold. I'm sorry we're starting a little bit late today. And if you are not seeing us on the particular platform that you're used to seeing us on, we're sorry because the connection might have gotten lost, but we will repost it. So today we've got a really great show here with you. But those of you that don't know about the Going Solo Life After Divorce, what we do is we talk about situations that not only appear as you're going through the transition of your new life, right? Going through divorce and stepping into that transition of being single, but also we talk about a little bit afterwards, what is going on with you, how you're experiencing life, what's going, what to really expect as you're stepping forward into your new life. Those of you that don't know me, I have been helping thousands connecting with our Going Solo singles with relationship loss, divorce, transition into dating, travel, and singles in business. We have in our singles community in our Tampa Bay area, we have close to 4,000 people. So if you're interested in dating, you're interested in getting out there and doing something, join us in our singles meetup. We also have several hundreds of people in our Facebook, our divorce group. And so join us there if you'd like. I have several different pages on Facebook that we help singles move through that transition. So you're welcome to join us there. Everything that I do, believe it or not, is free. So we do not charge for you to join them. We hope that you will enjoy them and that you'll help and share and really pay it forward as we move forward. So if anyone out there would like to ever reach me, you can reach me at goingsolonetwork@gmail.com. And of course, our website is goingsolonetwork.com. I want to thank New Streaming Network for all that they do to be able to share with our community and help you all through as we continue to go through. But of course, you guys know that nothing discussed here today constitute any kind of mental, religious, legal, or any financial advice. Should you seek advice, please consult the professionals directly. Now, we are going to be talking with a professional here today, and we're going to be talking about mediation. Those of you that are going through the divorce and trying to really get through that and try to figure out, what is going on, there's an easier way than to argue and fight and really make your family life miserable. It's called mediation. Those of you that haven't heard it, we've been talking about it for years. It's developed and it's grown. We not only use mediation through divorce, we sometimes use it after divorce because sometimes there's situations that occur afterwards, especially if you have children and you're trying to come together, try to figure out the best way to do it. Sometimes you need that middle person to be able to talk to, try to work it out, try to figure out what you want to do. And because, life is not cemented, is it? It kind of rolls around. It kind of, gets muckety muck, that type of thing. Mediation is really there for you. And we have the expert here today. We have Joe Dillon. We're going to bring him up. Hey, Joe. Oh, let's see if we can get him up here. There we
Here I
go. We got
am.
him up here.
Good
How are
morning,
you?
everyone. I'm doing well. Thanks for having me here.
Oh, it is great having you. Now, Joe, you're a pioneer in the divorce mediation. You've been helping, couples navigate through the end of marriages with really dignity and their financial wisdom for well over 17 years. You're the co-founder of the Equitable Mediation Service, and you really combine your MBA in finance and your really specialized training in both Harvard, MIT, and Northwestern University. And you really, truly help those not only guide them through, but come up with the agreements that need to come in place, that are filed within court so that they can really have a foundation in which to work from. So tell us a little bit of why you decided that mediation was so important to you that you were really going to devote your life to that.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, my parents litigated their divorce, right? So I'm a child of a litigated divorce. And my backstory, started when I was a teenager. And, as typical teenager kids want to do, they want to be hanging out with their friends and, they're working their job and playing sports and doing all that stuff. And basically, my high school years were consumed by my parents' divorce, right? And I would be sitting in the waiting room at my mom's lawyer's office, or I would be sitting in the back of a courtroom or in the hallway at the county courthouse. And like, that's not really how you want to spend your life. And So their divorce was really just so terrible that they just fought and fought. It took years to unfold, and my mom never recovered. And that's what kind of interested me about your show, is that, kind of going solo, is that you have to make that conscious decision, right? If one door closes, another one opens, right? And I'm not saying that divorce is anything to be taken lightly, but my mom was, I think, 45, and then she never dated, she never made any friends, she really didn't rebuild her life, and that was it. And then my dad was so angry, I guess, at the settlement, that he stopped talking to me and my mom. And so the last time I saw him, I was 15 years old in the lobby of a courthouse, and they had been arguing over who was going to pay for me to go to college. And then that was it. And then in 2019, I got a letter in the mail that said he died. And that was it. And so, that story when I was young, that really imprinted on me to say, there's a right way and a wrong way to do this. And, I wish everybody could mediate. Not everyone can, but you'd be surprised at if you act like an adult, you put your kids first, and that you really focus on the damage it's going to do to you both financially and emotionally, then you can mediate, right? And so I guess, a therapist would probably have a field day with me, right? Going, oh yeah, this is exactly why you do this, right? And I think that's really that story that I bring to the mediation space. And so that's kind of my personal story, and really kind of why I got into this.
Yeah, I mean, I think I thank you for sharing, because I really do feel that parents need to know that, because, they're in the muckety muck of divorce and they're kind of fighting about their futures, but sometimes they forget about their children's futures too. And it's not just about, what, the dollar signs, right? It's also about the mental part of it. And that can affect kids as they continue on. And, back in the day when I was going through my divorce, I didn't have mediation. I didn't even know what it was. And so I have been a real advocate for mediation. I mean, I do truly, truly believe that mediation is the way to go. Now, here in Florida, we have mediation. It's kind of like put into the process, but people, I don't feel, take advantage of the mediation. So let's just talk briefly about that, about how people can really use that mediation time for them, because they've already gotten in with an attorney, right? Now they're already in with an attorney. They're already, filed their paperwork. They've done all of these things. And now they've got court appointed mediation. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, and one thing to bring up is that there's absolutely court-appointed mediation, right? It does vary from state to state. Some states have it, some don't. But the other thing is you can always go to private mediation, right? Now, I'm a private mediator. I don't work through the court system. However, some people, like you said yourself, if you get an attorney, and I have a lot of friends and colleagues who are attorneys, and so I'm very, pro-attorney. If you need an attorney and you hire a lawyer, and a good lawyer is going to say to you, look, let's try mediation first, right? What's the worst that can happen? It's non-binding. We don't come to an agreement. If you don't like it, you don't have to stick to it. Then we can go the legal route, right? And so a lot of folks, if you have a good attorney, you'll do that, especially like in Florida. They'll say, okay, well, we'll go to court-appointed mediation. We'll start that process, hopefully be able to work it out. Because one thing that people don't know, I think this is important for people to know, statistically, 2% of all divorce cases get in front of a judge, 2%. So the judges don't want to see you, right? They only are going to handle the real problem cases, right? They're busy with all sorts of other stuff. They don't want to listen to you about the toaster and we didn't go to my in-laws on Thanksgiving and all that, right? But even before you get into that process, you can work with a private mediator, right? So you can just do a search, wherever you are, an internet search, and say, you're looking for a divorce mediator near me, and you'll be able to find somebody, for example, like myself, who will mediate before you even retain an attorney, right? You can come to us first. Then when you're done with us, you can have an attorney review everything, go through the formal process. And the advantage of doing that is you're off the clock, right? Like you said, when you file the papers and you get in a court-ordered mediation, you've got a court date that they want a settlement by this day, right? And these are big decisions, especially for the kinds of folks we work with in their 50s and 60s, who've been married a long time, right? Have a lot to unwind. That's a lot of pressure. And so if you go to a private mediator, you control the clock. You can enter the court system when you're ready. So there are options. So I just want to let the audience know that there are certainly options depending on where you live You can go private or you can go court ordered. So I hope that makes
Right.
sense.
I totally agree with that. Now I
Yeah.
know here in Florida, you can actually choose your own mediator.
Yeah.
You can do that. So, if you're listening here today and you're going to the court appointed, mediator, all of them are, I think pretty reputable. I mean, I'm not going to say any of them are really bad, but if there is someone, a private one that you want to hire, that you do want to go through that route, you can
Mhm.
definitely do it. Here's the thing is I agree with what you say about the you don't you really a lot of cases don't go all the way to court. They don't go all the way through to the judge, right?
Right.
They go through, they file the paperwork, then they do the court appointed mediation or whatever. And then a lot of times what happens is the attorneys knock it out back and forth. They go back and
Right.
forth. So here's
Right.
here's the reality is you've got somebody else choosing what's going to happen, not only with your assets, but with your life, your
Yep.
family. So why not take control of that? So I'm very for private mediation.
Yep.
I'm for, and I'm saying attorneys have a great role and they're
Of
definitely
course.
needed. And I know
Necessary
a
sometimes.
lot of
Yeah.
wonderful, reputable ones. But if you can do it beforehand, like you said, with the private mediator, and then you can start really sitting down, figuring out what it is that you truly want and where you envision your life to be in the future. And a mediator will be able to help you do that. So, Joe, let's talk about the guts of it, right? Let's talk
Yeah.
about
Sure.
the 1, 2, 3, right? So let's say, okay, I'm getting a divorce now and I don't know anything, right? A lot of us, we don't know anything. And so
Of
that's why we do
course.
these
Yeah.
wonderful shows like this so they can understand. So what is the first thing I do? I say to myself, okay, I don't want to go through the court because I know it's going to cost me a fortune. I'm
Right.
going to be, crazy, at the end of it and going through it.
Right.
So I'm going to go to you, Joe, and I'm
Okay.
going to say to you, you're my, what do I do? How do I get my partner on board with this? Number one, and what do I need to do to get started on this?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, first thing you want to understand is that mediation is a voluntary process, right? So both parties have to be willing. And you just said it, right?
Hmm.
And I can't convince one person to mediate if they don't want to, right? And so the first step in all of this is to get your spouse on board. And so, for example, on our website, we have a guide on the 5 options to divorce, right? It is our by far and away number one most popular resource. And in it is basically the 5 options to go through the divorce process, the pros and cons of each, what you need to do, what you need to understand. And then by doing that, reviewing that, maybe reviewing it with your spouse, you can say, hey, this is the option that sounds best for us, right? So hopefully it's mediation. Then what you want to do, any good mediator, at least in my opinion, as a neutral third party, you always want to emphasize to people that I don't represent either of you, right? I advocate for both of you. I want a solution that's best for the collective and your kids and your family and your future, right? So by having a meeting with both spouses and me, the mediator, I can help set that tone and say, look, I'm not here to take sides because you know what happens, Cece, a lot of times somebody will find us, right? One person is searching, right?
Yeah.
Usually, right, there's one person who's driving a divorce and they find us and the other person's like, well, that's your mediator. I don't know if I want to meet your mediator. And I want to clarify to people, I am not your mediator. I am your mediator, right? And so by getting into that first meeting and at least just having a first initial meeting to say, look, this is how the process works. Here's who I am. Here's how I work with both of you at the same time. It can kind of help allay some fears. And once you can get that buy-in from a spouse that says, yeah, you know what? This guy seems okay. He seems like he's going to advocate for both of us. I understand what he's going to do. That to me is the first key. You want to involve your spouse early so that they feel part of the decision because they might not be the one, they might not even want the divorce, right? That's common too, but you want them to at least feel like, well, at least I had a hand in selecting the mediator, right? So I think that's really step number one.
Right, absolutely. And really understand that the cost between doing a mediation, going through
Yeah.
mediators and going through, the more, the route with the attorneys,
Mhm.
if you're arguing, if you're, the word doesn't come to me, but if
Yeah.
you're, yeah, if you're going
Litigating
that
or
route, it's
whatever.
going to
Yeah.
cost you more money, right? So I
Yeah.
always say to them, okay, do you want to go on vacation? Or do you want to maybe pay your children's, college fund? I mean, let's think about that, what we're going to do, and let's figure out the other way. Here's the reality is, if you can go through, let's say you're going to go through mediation, you're going to try it, you're going to go through it. If it doesn't work out, you can still go,
Of
you know,
course.
the
Yeah.
arbitration. That's what I was thinking. You can still go through the arbitration route. You could still go through that. That isn't going to change for you. That option is still available for you.
Right.
So it's
Right.
not like you don't have to. But think about it in the sense that you want to start making the transition into your new life, right?
Right.
You realize, and I say this to my divorce group all the time. I said, the reality is you're getting a divorce. This
Right.
is it. You're
This is
getting it.
right. Yeah.
And so you can either do it the easier way, and you
Right.
can start working on the transition of your new life, or you can fight, kick, and scream and pay a whole lot of money,
Right.
to
And
move.
still wind up in the same spot, by the way, right? Instead of
Exactly.
2 to 3 months, it'll be 2 to 3 years and your bank account will be empty. And you're like, well, I'm still divorced, right?
Mhm.
It's like, and I don't mean to sound flip about it, but it's like, this is what happens, right? As we say to clients, look, it takes two people to be married, but only one to get a divorce.
Yeah.
And whether or not you want that divorce, it will happen. It's simply a function of how much time, money, and emotional capital you want to spend, right? That's it.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Again, we're just sharing you an option that's available to you, and
Right.
I don't
Yeah.
want to, cram it down people's throat, but I do want to encourage you to look at all your options and to really
Right.
truly understand what they are. There's different things like collaborative divorce. There's different things like that you can look into. But let's talk about the mediation part of it. A lot of
Okay.
times we'll spend a lot of time arguing over something that may not be of essence, right?
Right.
Let's
Right.
say, forget it, let's say it's the candlesticks, right? We're going to argue over this pair of candlesticks. So the
Right.
mediator is really good at understanding, stepping back and saying, okay, what is truly important with these candlesticks, right? Why are, if you were going the other route, you're going to be paying a whole lot of money to try to figure this out. But a
Right.
mediator, they can step back and say, why, is this truly important to you? Is it,
Right.
so how do you handle issues that are just really mundane, but they're not mundane to the person? They're,
Yeah.
so how do you
Yes.
handle that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I was taking training at Harvard, there's a famous book called Getting to Yes, right? It's a classic book on negotiation.
I read it.
And
Yeah, it's a great
yep,
book.
and the guys who wrote it taught the course at Harvard. That was the
Mhm.
Harvard program on negotiation. And their one of their things is you have to look for the reason behind the reason. And really, when you think about the candlesticks, it's not about the object or the item or the whatever it is at the time. There's some hidden reason that this person is saying, doing, or negotiating in this way. And a good mediator is not going to keep going right at the candlesticks in this example. They're going to circle around behind and see what's sort of under the hood, to kind of use a mechanics thing, right? And what you'll find out usually is it's not that it's about the candlesticks, it's about I had to walk the dog more when we were married, right? Like it's something so disconnected from the item at hand or the conversation at hand that when you can get to that aha moment as a mediator, and a good mediator is going to keep poking around until they find it, what that does then is it sort of pops the balloon and it lets all the air out of the argument, right? And then everybody's like, oh, right? Like anybody who has kids knows, right? Sometimes the kids are screaming and yelling. Sometimes the best thing to do is just let them tire themselves out, right? Eventually they'll stop, right? And so it's like, okay, you're going to hold your breath. Great. I tried to do that as a kid, right? I'm going to hold my breath. Great. You're eventually you're going to breathe. Okay, in this
Yeah.
example, it's the same thing. You're going to look for that reason behind it. And I find once I get that, if I spend a little time finding that, the rest of the conversation flows, because now we've made this breakthrough. We've got this understanding where the other person goes, well, I thought you loved walking the dog. I had no idea you needed some more help doing that. I'm so sorry. I would have walked the dog. And the other was like, oh wow, thanks for saying that. And then now we have the ability to move forward, right? So that's how you do it. You look for the reason behind the reason. So whenever even for your listeners, the viewers, if you're in an argument with somebody, it's not about they don't want to go see the movie you want to go see. Something happens somewhere in their day or in your relationship that's creating that friction, and that's what you should be always looking for.
Yeah. See, this
Yeah,
is the beauty of it. This is truly the beauty of mediation, because you will have this as you're going through a divorce. You will have these type of issues, and the mediation is beautiful because it allows them to slow down for a little bit, take a
right.
breath, and be able to really truly get down to the bottom of what's bothering them. We're going to
Yeah,
take a short break, Joe. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about all of the different aspects within mediation, what we can solve. Like, we can do the parenting plan, we can do all of these various different things, the steps that we can do that really can really bring together the divorce
right.
and the documentation that you might need to be able to move forward in your divorce very smoothly. So we're going to talk about those things. But before we do, I want to make sure you guys know how to get a hold of Joe, because I think it's important. You can see he's an expert in his field. He knows what he does. His name again is Joe Dillon. So his email is jdillon, DILLON, at
You got
equitablemediation.com. And his website is equitablemediation.com. So please make sure that you go to his website, check it out, because he's got lots of information there that you can be able to get. And you can just click a button there, be able to talk to him if you want, and be able to schedule a time in which to see him. So again, equitablemediation.com. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back just 30 seconds. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. You guys are listening to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. That's our radio station. And we'll be back with the newstreamingnetwork.com. So just hang tight. Well, welcome back. We are talking with Joe Dillon regarding equitable mediation. And so you guys are listening to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network Radio, also newstreamingnetwork.com, which is home of our Going Solo Media and our Going Bold Media. We want to thank you guys. We're kind of wearing a new hat because we're combining New Streaming Network onto all of the platforms. So we want to thank you. Those of you that are listening to us out there on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, all various different TV stations, our Roku station, we want to thank you for listening. And we want to really, you guys, our numbers are going up and up, and we want to thank you so much for doing all that you do. And please share, and anyone that's going through the situations like this, divorce or relationship loss or anything like that, share this, because I think it would definitely help them. Mediation, people do not know about it. They don't understand it, and we're going to clarify it today. Equitable mediation with Joe Dillon. So Joe has been around for a long time. I hate to say that, Joe, but
Yeah,
I know we don't like to hear that. But you've been in the business for over 17 years. You've got an MBA in finance. You've specialized training in Harvard, MIT, Northwestern University. You know your stuff. You've been helping couples navigate through this, and not only navigate through it, but get the agreements that you need to be able to file with the judge, be able to, kind of smooth it out. You are a private mediator, which means that the couples will hire you directly. And also, if there's issues after, and sometimes we don't think about that, there are issues that arise after, especially when you have children, like you said, talking about college, different things like that. If you have a child that's special needs, there's going to be issues as you continue on. Sometimes a mediator is used very, very well for those type of things. So let's talk a little bit about what all the things a mediator can do, because I want people to know that there's a vast amount of information and things that you can do to be able to help couples through. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's a great question, because there's a real misnomer out there. There's folks now, granted, it's becoming more well known, but like you said, mediation is still not widely known. And sometimes we'll get questions from people who meet with us. They'll say something like, "You mean you can help us come to agreements on child support?" And you're like, Yeah. Like you don't want to, as a professional, right? You don't want to come across as being sarcastic or something. You're like, of course, what do you think it is I do? Like you can really help us agree on a parenting plan? Yeah. And so like all these things, property division, alimony, right? All of these things, all of the issues that are required to get a divorce, a good mediator is going to be able to help you resolve, right? So mediators are going to take you, hopefully, right? I can tell you only a little bit about how we work, and we tend to be a little different because of my background in finance. I tend to take a pretty analytical approach to it in the sense that when I help people craft an agreement, I want it to be realistic, I want it to be executable, and I want it to be something that they're not going to turn around 12 or 24 months later and go, wow, this is terrible. Like I can't live with this, or this is not fair, right? I'm always looking to reality check it, if you will. And so as part of that process, a good mediator is going to be able to guide you through what we call internally, and we see on TV, right, discovery, what lawyers might call it as the discovery process, right? All the exchanging of information. So rather than having a judge, require you by court order to give someone the tax returns, we have a whole checklist where you can, say, hey, here's what I need from you, and here's all the stuff you need to give us. We'll also be able to frame out all the issues, right? So we'll say, okay, you have kids, you don't have kids, you're trying to retire, you might want to sell your house, right? So we'll help you understand what is it, everything that needs to be resolved. We'll negotiate through what we call the 4 big buckets, right? Parenting, child support, alimony, and property division. Those are really the big buckets, right? Those are the main things. But within all of that, there's all sorts of little subtopics. And on top of that, there can also be other issues. And I think this is really where mediation shines, right? When you think about a legal process and you go into the court system, somebody is trying to resolve those 4 issues, right? The lawyers, the judges, that's what they care about. But I'll take a perfect example. So I'm a proud pet parent, right? My fur child, she is a 90 some odd pound rescue monster. Her name is Wrigley. I'm a big Chicago Cubs fan. And she would be extremely important in my divorce agreement. But the courts don't have pet parenting plans, right? But a mediator is going to help you craft a pet parenting plan and a pet child support agreement, right? And that's where other things that might not be technically legal issues, right, can really come into play in mediation, where you can resolve not only the things you need for a divorce, but the things that are important to you for life. Then the mediator drafts all of that up into what's known as a memorandum of understanding. So it's a long, detailed document that outlines all the language, all the stuff you agreed to, right? And it depends on where you live. So I don't want to, overstep my bounds as a mediator. But depending on where you live, you can file yourself. A mediator might be able to file for you. There are other professionals, like in California where I am, there's document assistance where you can use your mediated agreement and they'll do all the dealings with the courts. So depending on where you live, that's what you want to do. You want to look up at what your filing options are, attorneys, right? Some courts have self-help. So it varies wildly. But really, the takeaway is that mediation can get you through pretty much everything you need to. And in some cases, some mediators will even do the filing for you, right? We choose not to because we want to remain neutral. And we feel like, look, we always want you to have that one last pass before we say it looks good, right? We want to give you the agreement and say, you clients, get it reviewed by an attorney or do how you see fit in order to make it legally binding, right? But again, mediation can really do it all. And I think a lot of people are surprised to find that out.
Right. That's great advice. And I love the idea that you can, have someone else look at it, an attorney look at it. And then if there's issues, let's say there is an issue that comes up, you can go back to the mediator again and hash out those situations, those problems that you might have. The reality is that you get control of your life, right? Mm-hmm. You're the one in the driving seat. You and your partner, or soon to be ex-partner, are in the driving seat, and you can actually come up with the agreements that you need to be able to put in place and have a clear understanding. Because I know, when I went through my divorce, this is an example, we come out of a 3-day trial, not knowing what's going to happen. And then I get something in the mail and I say, what does this mean?
Right.
I mean, right. It's like, oh my, and he goes, well, it's really not that bad. And I said, oh, well, maybe not for you.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Tell me a single person, right? So you see that, like, somebody, the word statute, you know, pursuant to, these are phrases that you're like, oh my God, like, what does this mean? And then it's like, oh, it's no big deal. It's like, you're damn right it's a big deal. I don't, you're scaring the crap out of me, right?
Right. And
In
be able to
mediation,
understand it, the
right?
lingo.
We're just
I mean,
just having a conversation. That's what I tell people. I'm like, look, it's my job to turn it into all the language, right? Let's
mhm,
just talk. What do you want to do here? How, what is your goal? What are your goals, right? That's the
mhm,
thing. And I think another thing people forget, right? So I'm a big fan of crime shows like CSI and all those kind of detective-y shows. And we watch them, right? And everything gets wrapped up in an hour. They find the guy, they prosecute him, right? It's like, oh, this is easy, right? And what we've all as Americans, and perhaps no matter where you are in the world, what we, at least in the American legal system, we think, oh, well, there's some clear rule book about what's right, what's wrong, what I get, what you get, dot, 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 right? And I think the reason we think that is because of all these crime shows. And that is where, when we talk about that kind of law, that's what we call a court of laws, right? So
right.
there's right and wrong. If I walked up to 10 people on the street and said, is it okay to shoot your neighbor? I'm pretty sure you'd say no unless the person was like breaking into your house, right?
Mhm,
Something like that. But what people in a divorce don't seem to understand is that in the family court, it's a court of equity. And equity is a strange word based on, as you can see, like with our company name, what does equitable mean? I mean, it sounds like equal, right? It sort of sounds like that word, but it doesn't mean equal. It means the fair, but not necessarily equal, right? Because
right.
in a court, in a divorce, it's what you both think is fair. And that might not be 50-50. And well, guess what? If you enter the court system, a judge might think this is fair for you, but you might not. And guess what? Now you've got this judgment, and the judge decided, and it's not like on TV where there's somebody comes in through their doors and there's big tears and the judge changes their mind. That's not how this works, right? So go to mediation, decide what you think is fair, and then take that to the courts and say, this is what we want, right? And that's the key thing. There's no magic rule book. Sure, there's guidelines and all the, like we were teasing, statutes and all this stuff. But if you read some of this stuff, now I'm not a lawyer, right? But if I mean, I've even read it. And if you look at some of it, you're like, what the hell does this mean, right? There's no formula in here. It's a bunch of words. How does somebody calculate alimony if there's no calculator, right? Like, it's all conversation, it's all negotiation, and that's what we do in mediation. So it's important to remember that.
It's amazing. It really is amazing. So I hope you guys learned a little something here today, because I do think that mediation is a wonderful tool that you guys can use, and it's something that wherever you live, in any state you live, there's mediators there, and so definitely do your homework and try to find one that you think will work for you, and sit down and talk with them and see if this is the route that you want to go. You and your soon-to-be ex want to go, and have control of what you're going to do. I mean, think about not only today, but what it's going to be like in the future if you have children, and how you're going to be able to approach that. So again, Joe, you're in California, so that's where he's located. If you guys are in that area, where he's at, reach out to him. You just go to equitablemediation.com. That's equitablemediation.com. And if you want to send him an email, it's jdillon, Dillon, at equitablemediation.com. He'll answer any question that you might have. But it's wonderful. You've been in business for a long time. You know your stuff.
Yeah.
There's just probably nothing you haven't seen or heard and solved. And that's the most important thing as we move
Yep.
forward, with this. And so I want to thank you so much.
Thank you.
I know you're going to have a meeting you got to go to, so I don't want to keep you much longer, but are there any last words you'd like to share with our audience?
I would say this, especially based on what you do and the good work you're doing here, is that the sooner you get through your divorce, the sooner you can rebuild your life, right? And I don't know how many years I have on this planet, and I wish very healthy, long lives for everyone listening today. But why waste them in a courtroom? Why waste them being angry and fighting, right? Just get through the process, rebuild your life, and move forward. That's what I would say and ask of everybody who was listening today.
Oh, thank you. And that's great advice. And again, you can use a mediator not only as you're going through your divorce, but also after your divorce. So if you find that you are in a situation that you're going to have to kind of work out another agreement, or you're going to have to revamp it or look at it again, get a mediator and sit down, talk it over, try to figure out what needs to be changed and as you move forward. And you may need to continue to do this as your family is growing and moving forward in life. And so don't think that everything's a done deal, that,
Right.
the book
Yeah.
is closed, because it's not. And so it is your life, and the next chapter is not written. So let's just enjoy it as we go and work
Right.
together as a team to be able to move our families forward. So again, you can reach Joe at jdillon@equitablemediation.com, or go to his website, which I highly recommend. It's equitablemediation.com. So you guys, we're going to have to close out the show. It's gone so fast. You are listening to Going Solo: Life After Relationship Loss. I am your host here, Cece Shatz. I'm fondly called the Doyenne of Relationship Building. I want to thank you guys for visiting us and being with us each and every time here on the newstreamingnetwork.com and our WGSN-DB Going Solo Network Radio. We want to thank you all for listening. We are just so touched with the numbers, and we do appreciate you. And again, you guys reach out to me if you find that you would like to join any of my groups or anything that we do. Going Solo Network at gmail.com is my email. I read them and answer them myself. No one else does. And also just our website, goingsolonetwork.com. And of course, check out the newstreamingnetwork.com. We got a lot of stuff on there too. There's also groups on there that you can join. We really want to help you with that transition as you're moving forward in life and truly enjoy yourself. So I am Cece Shatz, and I want to thank you so much for being with us. We'll catch you next time. Bye for now, everyone.